Now, the next question we had here for today's class, do I still look at the Vedic zodiac? And am I convinced that the tropical zodiac is the appropriate zodiac to use? And this person went on to say that it's been very confusing for her, exploring the accuracy of both and so on. And I have to admit that that was the case too. When I discovered using the tropical zodiac, it took me a long time to get my mind around using it. But what I actually found is that when I moved it over to the tropical zodiac, it reflected really how my life was. So I had a lot of good planets in certain areas in the sidereal zodiac, and of course I liked that because it made me feel good having certain exalted planets and so on. But then when I really thought about my life, and when I really thought about what I had achieved or what I had not achieved and so on, the planets that became good in the tropical zodiac, they reflected where I had really excelled and succeeded. Whereas in the sidereal zodiac, it wasn't the case. I couldn't explain it. So it was really about sort of admitting the truth to myself of, yes, this zodiac seems more accurate. So yes, I do have seen the tropical zodiac working extremely well, and especially in things like the Lajatati Avashtas or the Baladi Avashtas. And the Baladi Avashtas, the Avashtas that determine the karmic fruition of a planet. And I really want to get into that in another class, probably. It may be the next one, I'm not sure. But the Baladi Avashtas, what they do is they show are the karmas that the planets indicated, are they new? Are they just starting to sprout? Are they fully mature and giving their full effects in this life? Or are they old and dead, meaning that they're on their way out? And this is really nice to see because you can have planets that are in bad dignity, in bad avashtas, Lajatati avashtas, which indicate some pretty nasty karma. But the thing is, if those Baladi avashtas show that this is either in an infant state or in a dead state, if it's in an infant state, it shows that the person is just starting to develop this karma, which means they have a higher likelihood of being able to alter it and change it. If it's dead, it means that they've already experienced the majority of this bad karma in past lifetimes, and so in this lifetime, they might recognize it, but again, it's just like a stinking corpse over in the corner. It stinks, it's ugly, but it can't really do what it could do if it was alive and well and able to really harm you. The same thing with good things within a person's chart. Planets in good dignity indicate good karma, things that you want to have in your life. And so if a planet in good dignity is in a adult state, it means that you'll really experience full force within this life. If it's in an infant state, it'll show that you've just started to develop it, so you have to keep working on it to really bring it to fruition, either in this lifetime or the next. And if it's old or dead and so on, it'll show that even though it's a good karma, you've already exhausted that karma, which means that you'll expect more, but get less because it's not that influential for you. And what I found is that using the Lajatati Avashtas, the Baladi Avashtas, and a lot of the techniques that are talked about in Vedic astrology, but really, to be honest, if you talk to a lot of astrologers, professional astrologers, they don't use them. And that's because they don't necessarily always work hardly at all with the tropical zodiac. They don't work hardly at all with the sidereal zodiac. So switching over to the tropical zodiac really helped a lot of these more precise techniques work well. And even with the dasha systems, once I switched over to this tropical zodiac from the sidereal, the dashas just seemed to fall into place with my own chart, with charts of people I knew and clients and so on. So yeah, I really... I've seen this work very well in the last year that I've been using it. I've only been using it a year, but within that year, it's accelerated my practice so much that, I'm booked out pretty far, and I get extremely good results with clients now. Whereas I got good results before, but that was based more on intuition. And I don't want to say that the sidereal zodiac can't serve you, because a lot of you who have been clients or students or have talked with me know that for 10 years that I did Vedic astrology using the sidereal zodiac, and I did it pretty well. However, those of you that know me, if you've had a session lately, you know that I've gotten a hell of a lot better since I switched over to the tropical zodiac. So you can do good astrology with any system, really, because your intuition does help. But the reason, this is very important, so pay attention to this, the reason we want to do astrology in such a way that we don't have to rely on our intuition, we want to just be able to say, this equals that, therefore this is the experience that you're probably going to have. Because the more you use your intuition, the less you have that power and that juice to meditate. and to experience very clear states. And you'll know that in the Yoga Sutras, there is a chapter on soul powers, or siddhis. And these soul powers, they're said to be useful to help you along your path. So if you need to use the soul power to continue your spiritual growth into self-realization, that's fine. And usually it'll happen naturally. You don't have to develop it. It just occurs when you need it. And a lot of the saints and sages that were fully realized, they wouldn't say they had any special powers at all. It was just that at that moment, the infinite consciousness worked through them when it needed to, and then they supposedly imbued one of these soul powers. And if you read any of the old mythological books, or even just any of the old scriptures, you'll hear about sages and saints like cursing others or granting boons. But whenever they do that, they waste a little bit of their spiritual power. And that comes up over and over again. And so if you're using your intuition within your work, you're kind of wasting your spiritual force. And I found this to be so. So the less you use your intuition, the more you can just look at something and get the information logically, then you have all that energy, all that power to find out what are you really, to intuit yourself, what God is, to intuit the deeper aspects of your life. And that's not going to make you more successful, and that's not going to change the world. That's going to give you self-realization so that you can be okay in this world no matter what. So anyway, one of the main reasons I really like this system, using the tropical zodiac and even the different Ayanamsha that's centered in the middle of Mula, the galactic center, because it doesn't require intuition. And then I can use all of that spiritual force, I can use all of that power, all of that clarity within my inner work, and I don't have to use it to figure things out. I can figure out the real meaningful things in life, the deeper aspects of what we are. So, depending on where you are and what you're interested in, if you like using your intuition, no problem with that. That's just part of your dharma. That's part of what your karmas say you're going to be doing, so knock yourself out. If you don't, if you understand what I'm saying, and if you've experienced that, whether you're a healer or you've worked with other people, you understand what I'm saying, and this will make it might make a little more sense to you in that regard. But either way, we have to keep in mind that we can't really go against our svadharma. We'll either use our intuition or we won't. And it depends on what we really need that juice for in the first place, that spiritual power. So let me just make sure I answered all of that question. Let's see here. All right. And the only other thing I would say about figuring out the tropical versus the sidereal zodiac is you really got to think about how these avashtas work within each zodiac, and it might be helpful to have someone talk about your chart with you that is a little more objective, because you will see things the way you want to see them most of the time. And if you have an objective or a third party or just anyone who knows about this stuff to sort of go through this with you and say, all right, well, this is what it says. Does this make sense based on your experience? That might help you see the difference there. But don't worry about it. I mean, I've been beating my head into a wall with this stuff for over a year now, and while it gets easier and much more accurate, it still feels like there's just so much more out there, and it's really inspiring to see the possibility. And with the possibility of Vedic astrology, what we have to remember is that we've just come out of the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness, and we're just getting into the electric age, which is the next cycle. And so as we ascend through the cycles, our ability to understand sacred sciences, our ability to understand other cultures, we make more and more discoveries, and we get clearer and clearer and clearer. So we're just on the beginning of understanding what astrology is possible. And as we ascend through the ages over the next 10,000 years, we will discover more, and we will discover more, and it will become more accurate until eventually we get to the silver, the golden age, where we don't really need astrology because we're already in tune with this infinite consciousness as best we can be, and it's more just fun to understand the universe and ourselves. So keep in mind that we're just on the cusp of learning, and just like sciences are still learning. And over the last 200 years, think about the explosion in discoveries we've had in just physical sciences. That same thing's going to apply to spiritual sciences, and the same thing's going to apply to Vedic astrology and Jyotish. We're just at the beginning, and if you're studying it now, and you're really getting into it, you are paving the way for the future generations to build upon it. This is what we can possibly know now. As we go, as we develop, even as we develop our own inner selves, we'll discover more and so on. So it's an evolving thing, just like all of life. So don't get caught up in it. Look at your experiences, see what works for you, and probably talk with someone else who knows about these things so that you can compare notes. That'll make it a little bit easier.